Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. It's a good time of year. Even in the dark times, even in the dark times, the light of the world has come to us. I haven't actually been doing the live stream in a while. Just the short story there is I've had family members, more my mother and mother in law, not doing so well health wise. So I just had to have time for myself, meaning time for them and squeezing it all in. But I've been wanting to do a few things for a while. Um, and here it is close to Christmas. I want to do things that might help you have a better season. And I have had lots of time to ponder and think about these things. Even as a child, I would be upset with Christmas. I would have high expectations. I would want to have this most wonderful, glorious time. A shout out to Hi John. It's good to have someone there. Um, I would have these high expectations, and maybe other people have high expectations, but I would, as a kid, it was like I wanted a Christmas gift that I thought would be great, or that Hallmark commercial scene that you'd walk into with the snow falling outside the window and the family all getting along and the food is there and all the pest of the fireplace, all that stuff. And then it would never be as I would have imagined in my mind. And then I would get into a bad mood, and then that would affect other family members. And then by you know, December 28th, 29th, and January, I'd be like depressed kind of a month. It was kind of weird. But add in a few extra family dysfunctional things that happened. And it wasn't all their fault. Even as a young child, I could take responsibility knowing I didn't. Um, we just did the best we knew to do. But what I've learned to do, and in fact, I actually did a speaking engagement on this in the school district about how to have the Christmas of your dreams, how to like design it, how to what are the elements that make a great Christmas time. So I'll talk about some of those and also weave in how to reduce anxiety. We'll get some of the clinical stuff out of the way, but these are like obvious. As I grew up and grew through these experiences, I realized that I was eating different. Um, if I eat sugar, high fat items, of course I'm going to feel sick. And then feeling sick doesn't really help you sleep. And of course, I wouldn't sleep the same way either. So those two, and would I get the exercise I would normally get? No, because I was busy doing Christmassy things. Then pack more family. Now, as a kid, I mean, this was teenage years I discovered this. So I just learned to not overdo it. It wouldn't be worth it. You just feel sick. Now, my faith tradition is we don't really eat a lot of rich things anyway until Christmas Eve. And then we'd have 12 days of Christmas, which is kind of fun. So, yeah, just watch when you go to bed, when you wake up, when you, what you're eating. It's fun. It's fun to see people and have festive foods, even not even over the top. But is it my basic oatmeal? Is it my basic thing that I just eat? And my body goes, oh, I remember this, you know? So think about things that are predictable, because things that are fun and out of the ordinary are stressful to the body. We're just not used to it. So then add in meeting family members. Now, this probably pertains more as an adult, but even as a child, I like to see family members, but I would be nervous to go to certain grandparents' house. It wasn't that they were bad, it's just that there was going to be a lot of people, and it's just how it was. I would be excited, but I would also be just kind of like a little bit on edge, just how it was. Oh, and if you're visiting family members, you're not sleeping in the same bed. Yeah. So you're living in a suitcase. So just take all this into account. So I think some of us have some social anxiety. And then now I'll talk more adult years. Oh, let's add in one more biological factor. Is it the darkest day of the year or what? Out here, there's like a lot of drama. We had a shooting in our town. We had the schools shut down. I have people that are suicidal, people I distant, like a distant acquaintance, but like, sure, we're going to get you in. I cannot not help you, but I have to be careful with that thinking. But yeah, no, and oh, so I kind of believe that the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year, affects us, and then on top of it, it's a full moon. So and then of course it's cold, so we may not be outdoors as much. It's about 32 degrees out here in Washington State. Um, so add in other factors for some of us. There's family members that we used to see that aren't there. It's a sad time. People have passed away. Um, it's also a time where maybe this dysfunctional family arguments and rows and things that have happened. And so now they won't see each other, or they will see each other, but it's going to be tense. Sprinkle. I feel like I'm being negative. This is so funny. We're going to get to peace on earth, goodwill toward men. But I'm just kind of stating what the problem, help us identify the problem versus just walk in and wonder why we're really not feeling so well. Because we're walking into a situation where Uncle George won't talk to Uncle Steve because they said something 3 years ago and they drank too much. And we're just thankful that they're both there at the same time. While other family members think, well, why on earth, maybe why are we putting on this ruse? Why should we invite these people? So there's all this family tension, and I hear about it throughout the day. In the midst of this, we can be sick. There are people that are sick. And last year, I just reflected on this before preparing for this. I realized last year, I'm not blaming any of my clients, they're sweet people, but it was funny. I just happened to be exposed to a COVID connection, possibly. I was protected because I was, dealing with people's scalps and stuff like that. For those that don't know, I do EEG biofeedback, works really well. So this person did such a good job of calling me. Guess what? I was exposed and all that. Well, just to let you know that then I had seen my other family members who they were going to see other family members that were elderly. So then I had to call them up and say, oh, I might have been exposed. What? Well, it might have been. It all turned out well. But we were waiting for COVID tests on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, or I think it was the day after. And I think some of us actually weren't feeling well. So, I totally forgot about that. That's sometimes a good thing to forget about things. I'm planning on just a simple Christmas this year. I've already met with some family members, um, actually, both parents, and so we're just going to stay here. We might have snow. But what are you guys doing? Feel free to share and leave comments in the comment section. So I want to share a story, which here's the positive about Christmas. I get totally turned on by music. There are music, carols, that the words are so good that I can't just but start crying. And it's not some of the things like Jingle Bells and all that stuff. I mean, I get sentimental, but no, these are Christian Christmas carols. Um, Before I go to the positive, I'll confess one negative thing too. And for a while, I did feel really much like Scrooge, uh, because a combination of my brain and negativity would start to pick apart things. And the things I would pick apart were the movies to watch during the holiday season. Whether it's getting a new boyfriend from Santa, or Santa is your boyfriend, or Santa has cancer and still makes it through to give you a boyfriend, or gingerbread houses contests. And I mean, it just keeps on mutating and mutating and mutating into something that's such so fluff that it was so far away from the real reason for the season. Then I would be in a bad mood, just like a Scrooge, but kind of a Christian Scrooge that was mad at how the world's gone commercialized, etc. So I've learned to give that up, because that doesn't work. It doesn't make anybody happy. Um, but it was kind of fun using witty humor to come up with storylines of Christmas things that haven't been done. And it's hard to, you know, um, come up with things that are so overdone. Let's see what John shares here. Oh, welcome, Kervin. Oh, Kervin shares all his travel plans fell through. Sometimes there's a strange blessing in that. Um, and then with John, shares about um, good. I'm going to share this out loud because this, I think, is important. So John shares. I like the icon, the little um, identifying circle thing. It's funny, we have these circle things. What are they called? But anyway, mom doesn't get along with most of her family. I'd love to see some family, but it's complicated. Any advice? Yes. Don't take drugs. Don't, use high proof eggnog to get through the holiday like the social lubricant. Try to get some sleep. It's like I would pray a lot before going to family members. My poor family. Well, I don't want to go there. I would just say that we would pray before going in the door. And I will admit, thank you. It's as simple as not a thumbnail. I just realized my attitude was everything. It really is. Attitude is what can make or break us. And, I'm going to look up a attitude. He's by Charles Swindoll. And it is in a plaque, but it's really, really good. It's spot on. So I'm going to remove that and share a screen. And I'll try to, share the screen here. Share screen. It's nice in my age. I have all these things that I've used over the years. And so I can just go to it. And they're usually other people's things. So you might be able to see this or not. But attitude, I'll just read it slowly. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is to play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. This, I think, is so key. I just use this all the time. In fact, it's a plaque for $4. Hey, shout out to my son who's saying, I need something for my dad. I'm sentimental. These are the things that. So let's challenge this. Let's ask ourselves, is attitude more important than facts? Well, I mean, facts are important. I'm not going to discount to say that, but as far as I could be so right about something and use those facts in such a way that really harm people or help people, but my attitude is really pretty powerful. Say like there are facts that are really unsettling, like you have a tumor, or your parents are getting a divorce, or that there's war going on, or there's poverty. I mean, we could go on and on with negatives, but it's our approach to how do we deal with those facts. Now, it's easier to see our past. Some of us have had pasts and done things that we just feel sick to our stomach about. And if we think about that without a proper attitude, we're just going to be sick. Then education. You can have lots of education, but attitude about what you do with that education, then money. Exactly. Circumstances, yes. Then failures, then successes, then what other people think. You know what? That's a big one. We don't want people to think poorly of us, but if I have a good attitude about it, it changes everything. We could change this to the words perspective, but attitude is more than perspective. It's a physical, emotional, spiritual response I have to something versus perception just seems to be like an eyesight thing here. It'll make or break a company. That's true. Let's go back to the facts. A company that has some startling facts that they're going broke or limitations or something happen. A church, a home, it's how we respond to it. And so we do have a choice every day. I have to ask God to help me with changing my attitude. Anyway, I just love this. So I think that's something to consider is if I have to go spend time with them because I know that they have problems, do I want their energy to radiate towards me, or do I want to radiate love, patience? And I can't do it in my own strength. And I can tell you that sometimes in my mind, I was making things worse than they were before I even got there. And sure enough, some of the people were nicer than I expected, and I had a good time. I think some of us do that to not get disappointed. So we go from one extreme in my life, have my expectations high. Well, then if I go too low, that's not helpful. I think this is faith. I got some of these mugs. My sister, sweetheart of a gal, I said, well, I really like these. And what's great, they're wobbly. They're like not round. They're imperfect, and they're just really kind of nice. They're called Ray Dunn. And well, now I got Christmas ones and peace. And yeah. So I also think on another side, it's not just going in and grinning and bear it, taking walks. And I did this. And we would have some of the best Christmases or family gatherings when I would say, you know what, I think I'm going to go take a walk. And first it was my lovely wife, Nadine, and myself, and we go take a walk. Then we had children. It's like, oh, let's go on a walk. It was partly to just get fresh air and to break up what was going on. Well, then more and more people wanted to join us, which is fine. Then we started running faster, and then the family members started chasing us. They began to wonder, why are they running from us? No, that's made up. But it turns out that it gave us all some breathing space to just get out of the house and break up the mood. And also during this time, it usually we get a little bit warm because there are family members that like it warmer. And so getting cooler actually helped us a bit. And I think that that's kind of common. I think lots of families have decided to take breaks. The other thing is, I love this phrase I learned from a client. She'd always say, well, we have choices. We have choices. We have choices. And it's true. You know, we have choices not to even attend a Christmas or a gathering, which can really stir up trouble. People are used to you coming, but you know, if you're going to do that, I think it's good to have something else in its place. Um, and we did that. We did that one time. We were without children, and we decided to go to a nice lodge, a Christmas kind of lodge. We went to a church down the street we had never been to, and it was just the two of us. And I thought either this is going to be the worst idea or one of the better times. It was actually quite fun. Our parents both were like, well, why? Why would you do this? Well, we just want to try something different before we have children. We spent time with them before and after Christmas, and it was like the best gathering around because there was no pressure put on one day. And I think that's the thing, is that we put this pressure into one day. So even to this day, I'll spend Christmas at New Year's with my mother. My mother, bless her heart, doesn't feel this need. What? You're not going to spend Christmas with me? Well, what about Christmas with my mother-in-law? And they're 200 miles away. And I mean, we've done things where we tried to see people both in one day. So another principle is spread the family out. Don't try to do this all at once. You know, we need to cleanse the palate. Yes, laughing out loud. I remember melting at my grandparents' house. My brother. I mean, I still get the. So, this is so funny. So I'm going to leave this up there because my grandparents, they would crank up the heat. And my dad was kind of relaxed. So he just took off his shirt. So, I mean, he's just in an undershirt sitting there. And you know, it's bad when you decide, let's sit on the floor. Why? Because it's cooler down there. And of course, we're not going to say anything. We're not going to hurt their feelings. But you feel like if you got up and moved a little bit, you might get that blood flowing. And so then, as we said, hey, I think we're going to go on a little walk. So my brother, I'll never forget his face. So he opens the door and goes, you know, he was just inhaling. And it was like that. I saw the screen, inhaling all this cool air like he'd been trapped, kidnapped, and trapped in a box, you know, in a heat box. Actually, there's one Christmas mutated show that has not been done, like Kidnapped for Christmas, you know, where people, it's a suspense and they have to get rescued by Christmas time. You know, so anyway, yeah, no melting. Um, yeah. What's interesting is both my my parents. I mean, they didn't. Well, I take that back. My dad loved the idea of a fire and a pellet stove. And so he's going to crank up the pellet stove. And it was not because it was cold. It was the idea of having a nice pellet stove Christmas. And so we would start in there. And then it would get more and more. You would see people leave that room and start to migrate. And finally we said, Dad, we could actually just enjoy it just a little bit, it was just, there was ways to try to crank it down, but it was the idea. I do remember a Christmas show I saw once where it was in Australia, and that's their summer. And these English Australian people have a Yule log, which they're burning in the middle of the day, and you see them sweating, and it's like 104 degrees. So, some things are very traditional. On that note of tradition, sometimes we do traditions and we'd be exhausted because we'd bake all these cookies and put up every decoration possible. And then we realize, why are we doing this? Because we are creatures of habit. It's what we always do. And so sometimes it's helpful to take away just a little bit of the tradition. I do believe this: if you take away it all, it won't feel like Christmas. You'll have kind of a weird sensation, So pick and choose which things you want to put up, which things you want. I will say overall less. I went through a stage where more and more, and we packed so much fun into all the days before Christmas. It was just too much. And so now we do a lot less, and we're happier. That the joy is much better. Boy, there's a lot of things to share. So another principle which I find useful is to at least ask family members or just yourself, what one thing would you like to experience during this season? Is it to go to the mall and look at carolers, or to go experience snow, or is it to just have, time to yourself, a cup of Christmas tea, or, it helps. And it helps to actually ask other family members, how do they know when they're having that nice moment? I got this idea from vacations. If we do a vacation and we never really check in with family members to say, well, how will you know you're having a good time? Then, we had 4 in our family. So if we checked in and asked, and it's like, well, we try to do one of each of those things. And then it would feel satisfying. And sure enough, we enjoyed what the other people wanted as well. So we just applied that to Christmas. And for me, I will say that there's some emotionally touching thing that will happen that I let off a lot of emotional steam or cry, but I'm just so touched by the joy of the experience. It could be a song, it could be, sometimes it's a gift, which is kind of embarrassing if someone's giving me a gift and it's just so nice, so sentimental that I'm just crying there. Sometimes it's an act of kindness that I find someone needs help. I do like giving to the poor, which is probably a weird thing to say. I mean, we could give to the poor in such a way where it's not a thing, but it shouldn't be prideful or anything. What I'm talking about is when I start to compare my life to other people's lives, I get really kind of sad. So if there's something I could do in secret to get some money to someone or something to them, it just makes me feel happier. And then I realize this phrase, it's more blessed to give than to receive. I will share a little bit about my faith tradition. So in December 6th, we celebrate St. Nicholas Day. And there's a whole tradition, you can look it up, about who St. Nicholas was, etc. He was really an important Christian in the 300s who was there at the first council, and he did more than just give gifts of money to help people, but he helped people who were falsely accused and ready to be executed. He would stand in and say, "No, stop." He was just a very good person. But that's when we do our overnight little stockings and stuff like that, is on December 5th. What the nice thing about that is it breaks it up and really takes it away from some of the Christmas stuff. And then invariably we go to a church service, or we usually go give to the local food bank. So we go shopping, buy as much as we can afford, or even a little bit more, and just cart it all in there. And it's just, I don't know. So it's enough of a tradition. It's hard to not do it. It just feels like that's what Christmas, part of the whole pre-Christmas season is. I will say, since I'm on a little bit about my faith tradition, what's great is having 12 days of Christmas, because you don't really have any drop off right afterwards. And that really took away a lot of this depression, where it would lead up and then it's like crashing down. So since we're not eating, we're kind of fasting, we're not eating a lot of festive foods, that we have one day of Christmas, which is Christmas. We break our fast on Christmas Eve at a candlelight service, which is probably about 2 to 3 hours long. Then Christmas morning, we get up, and I usually pray little prayers, but we have a nice breakfast, and then we see family, etc. The day after is the second day of Christmas, and the third, and so on, and so forth. And so the third day of Christmas honors Saint Stephen, the first martyr, who you can see what happened there in the book of Acts. And then after that, all the innocents that Herod killed, thousands of babies that were slaughtered, are honored. And good King Wenceslas, okay, that song, Good King Wenceslas, Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. So they were, yeah, I know. That's how they did it, that on the feast of Stephen, they would be honoring these saints and be going out and doing things. Yeah, Saint Stephen. And I have a few Stephens in my life. So what's fun about this is there's lots of church services. The church is still decorated all the way up until January 6th. And January 6th is, in the West, is Epiphany, honoring the three wise men. But originally it was Christmas. It's strange. The history, since we're on this though, the history of Christmas, Holy Nativity, and Theophany were one. Theophany commemorates Christ's baptism, and so it was one holiday, and then it somehow got divided out to have a separate day, 12 days apart. So what's great about this, you have 12 days, so you can give gifts any of those days. You can have people over any of those days. And then there's a stricter fast on the eve of Theophany. And then we go to have a church service where there's the blessing of water, which becomes holy water, which then our houses and ourselves are blessed with. And so, believe it or not, it's a more important feast than actually Christmas was in the early church. So, I know what I love. I love to go to a service on Christmas Eve morning called Royal Hours. And this usually chokes me up. Royal Hours, I think it's called Royal Hours because it had to do with when the emperors would come or something like that. But they read all the prophecies and all the Psalms, and I pretty much mean every psalm relating to Christ's birth and the work he does in her life. It's just mind blowing. And it's just so great to do that. Again, it would not feel like Christmas Eve at all if I didn't do it, because Christmas Eve lands on a Saturday. So then we not only have that, but then we have a church service in the morning, and then we have a church service at night. So then the middle of the day, we're just kind of waiting expectantly, for, Christ coming into this dark world. I want to share something here. I'm going to look it up real fast. So switching gears a little bit. The song that really, so things that will touch me is a certain Christmas song. And each year, for many years, it may be the same one. Like for a while, it was in the bleak midwinter. That's such a good story, or a good song there. But recently, it's the if you've heard the carol, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. You might have heard of Longfellow, the poet, the writer. Well, I'm just going to read a little bit about, I might as well share the screen. Don't be greedy here, Eric. I need to stop screen and share the screen so that you can see what I am seeing. You can look it up, the true story of. So in the March of 1863, so think Civil War, Charles Appleton Longfellow left his family's house in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Unbeknownst to his family, he boarded a train for Washington, D.C., traveling over 400 miles down the eastern seaboard in order to join President Lincoln's Union Army to fight in the Civil War. Charles was one of the oldest of 6 children born to Fanny Elizabeth Appleton and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Okay, so basically, this guy was Longfellow's son. He had 5 younger siblings, brother age 17, 4 sisters, 13, 10, and 8, and one who had died in an infant. Less than 2 years earlier, Charles's mother, Fanny, had tragically died after her dress caught on fire. So that's Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's wife. Her husband, Henry, awakened from the nap, tried to extinguish the flames as best he could, first with a rug and then his own body, but she had already suffered severe burns. She died the next morning. Henry Longfellow's own burns were severe enough that he was unable to attend to his wife's funeral. He stopped shaving on account of his burns, growing a beard that would be associated with his image. So at times he feared that he would be sent to an asylum on account of his grief. I think some of us have been there. I think a lot of us have been there. That we see so much pain and tragedy, or we experience it, we just go, am I going to lose it? I mean, is this the end for me? So when Charlie, as he was called, arrived in Washington, D.C., he sought to enlist as a private with the 1st Massachusetts Artillery. Captain W.H. McCartney, commander of Battery A, wrote to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow for written permission for Charlie to become a soldier. So Henry does. And let's see. Well, Charlie fell ill with camp fever, probably typhoid or typhomalarial, and was sent home to recover. That summer, having missed the Battle of Gettysburg, he rejoined his unit. And then the first day of that December, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was dining alone at his home when a telegram arrived with the news that his son had been severely wounded, inaccurately stating that he had been shot in the face 4 days earlier. On November 27th, while involved in a skirmish during the Battle of Mine Run campaign, Charlie had been shot through the left shoulder with the bullet exiting under his right shoulder blade. It had traveled across his back and nicked his spine. Charlie avoided being paralyzed by less than an inch. He was carried into New Hope Church in Virginia and transported to the Rapidan River. Charlie's father and younger brother Ernest immediately set out for Washington, D.C. Arriving on December 3rd, Charlie arrived by train on December 5th. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was alarmed when informed by the army surgeon that his son's wound was very serious and that paralysis might ensue. 3 surgeons gave him a more favorable report that evening, suggesting a recovery that would require him to be long in healing, at least 6 months. So here on Friday, December 25th, it's Friday. Nope, it's not. It's Saturday this year. But anyway, you have this 57-year-old widow, father of 6 children, the oldest which was nearly paralyzed as he was fighting for his country, with its war against itself, wrote a poem seeking to capture the dynamic and dissonance in his own heart and the world he observes around him that Christmas day. And then he hears the bells, Christmas bells ringing in Cambridge, that singing of peace on earth. But he observed the world of injustice and violence that seemed to mock the truthfulness of this optimistic outlook. That's why I love this. And I was into this before we even got into the problems we face. The theme of listening recurs throughout the poem, eventually leading to the settledness of confident hope that even in the midst of a bleak despair, as he recounts to himself that God is alive and righteousness shall prevail. Isn't that beautiful? Just, it's that. See, so maybe this is this moment for me. Maybe this is the moment. I have this touch from God, if you will. I'm going to try to stream. Yeah, believe it or not, I'm going to try to stream. The new system I have now allows me to actually download a video and upload it so that it's much more clear in this. But I'm going to try sharing this video. My intent is not to infringe on copyright, but just to promote this beautiful song. This is a different version. It's a more modern version, and I happen to like this group here. So let's see if I can share that. Sorry, folks.
Beautiful.
Okay, we get a little commercial here. Sorry about that.
Oh, here's another picture of your mommy.
Well, I guess someone needs to make some money here, which is okay with me. And Ed Sheeran's. Okay, here it is. Live stream. I had this all queued up here. Thank you for your patience. Share screen.
the bells on Christmas Day. Their old familiar carols play, and the wild and swing, the words repeat. Peace on earth, peace on earth, and in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on this earth, I said, for hate is strong and knocks the sound. Where is the peace on earth? I cannot see it. There is no peace on this earth. I cannot feel it. Ain't the bells more loud and deep? God is not dead, no, he does not sleep. The rock shall fail, the right prevail. Oh come, we pray, the Prince of Peace to reign. Let all our tears away, heal us from all our pain. Oh come, we pray, show us a better way, bring us a brighter day. Till we see it's when the Prince of Peace to reign. To be born, Jesus, from night to day. Our voice on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play.
So that was the Five Strings. I love that group. I'll put a link down in the description. Nothing like music to warm the heart, to help cheer us up, to especially if it's one of those songs that gets stuck in your heart, stuck in your head, where throughout this Christmas season you have that playing in the background. Yeah, that can be very powerful. And I like this because it's a gentle reminder that in the midst of darkness and difficulty, and that things don't always seem like there's peace on earth, but I think it begins with our hearts and a goodwill toward men, that maybe this is the time that we can try to find a way to be giving, just one person at a time. So, well, I wish you all a great Christmas and holiday season, and I will see you later. Thanks.